A long time ago, in a kingdom called Persia, there was a powerful king named Ahasuerus. He had everything anyone could dream of: riches, power, and a grand palace. One day, the king decided to throw a huge party. It wasn't just any party, it lasted for 6 whole months. All the important people from the kingdom came to celebrate. There was music, food, dancing, and lots of wine. Everyone was having a great time. As the party went on, the king felt proud of everything he had. He thought to himself, "I want to show everyone how beautiful my queen is." So, he called for his servants and said, "Go bring Queen Vashti. Tell her to wear her crown and come here so everyone can see her beauty." The servants rushed off to find Queen Vashti. But when they told her the king's command, she said, "No, I will not go." She refused to come to the party. When the servants returned to the king and told him what she said, he was shocked. His face turned red with anger. No one had ever said no to him like that before. Now, the king didn't know what to do. He didn't want everyone to think they could disrespect him too. So, he asked his advisors for help. One of the advisors, a man named Memucan, spoke up. "Your Majesty," he said, "if the queen disrespects you, other women in the kingdom might start disobeying their husbands too. We can't let this happen. I think you should make a law that Vashti can never be queen again. Let her be removed, and find someone else to be queen." The king thought about it and decided Memucan was right. He made a law that Vashti would no longer be queen, and that was the end of it. After a while, though, the king missed having a queen by his side. He felt lonely and wanted to find someone new. So, his servants suggested something. "Why not have a search for the most beautiful women in the kingdom? You can choose one of them to be your new queen." The king liked this idea, so he sent out a royal order. Beautiful young women from every corner of the kingdom were brought to the palace. Among them was a girl named Esther. Now, Esther wasn't just any girl. She was an orphan, raised by her kind cousin, Mordecai, after her parents died. She lived a quiet life, and no one knew that she was Jewish. Before Esther went to the palace, Mordecai gave her one piece of advice. He said, "Don't tell anyone that you are Jewish. Keep it a secret, at least for now." Esther promised him she would keep quiet, and she went off to the palace. When she arrived, everyone could see there was something special about her. She was kind, humble, and very beautiful. The king's servants liked her so much that they gave her the best beauty treatments and made sure she was well taken care of. After many months of preparing, it was finally Esther's turn to meet the king. She entered the royal hall, and when the king saw her, his heart was filled with joy. There was no doubt in his mind, this was the woman he wanted to be his queen. He placed the royal crown on her head, and just like that, Esther, the orphan girl, became the Queen of Persia. Not long after Esther became queen, Mordecai was sitting at the palace gate, when he overheard 2 guards talking. They were angry with the king and were planning to kill him. Mordecai couldn't believe his ears. He knew he had to act fast, so he sent a message to Esther. "Esther," the message said, "you must tell the king that his life is in danger. 2 of his guards are planning to harm him." Esther quickly went to the king and told him what Mordecai had heard. The king was shocked and immediately ordered the guards to be arrested. Their plan to harm him was stopped, and Mordecai's act of kindness was written down in the royal records. However, the king didn't reward Mordecai at that time. While all this was happening, a man named Haman was getting more and more powerful in the king's court. The king trusted Haman so much that he made him the most important man in the kingdom, after himself. Everyone was ordered to bow to Haman and show him respect. But Mordecai refused to bow. He stood tall, even when Haman passed by. Haman was furious. He couldn't stand the sight of Mordecai refusing to bow. When he found out that Mordecai was Jewish, his anger grew even stronger. He thought, I won't just punish Mordecai. I will destroy all the Jewish people in the kingdom. Haman went to the king with a plan. He said, Your Majesty, there is a group of people living in your kingdom who follow different laws and customs. They don't obey your rules. For the good of the kingdom, I think we should get rid of them. The king trusted Haman and didn't ask too many questions. Do what you think is best, the king said. So, Haman sent letters to all the provinces, ordering that on a certain day, the Jewish people were to be attacked and destroyed. It was a terrible plan, and soon the news spread throughout the kingdom. When Mordecai heard about this plan, he was heartbroken. He tore his clothes and cried loudly in the streets. He knew that all the Jewish people were in danger. He sent a message to Esther, begging her to go to the king and ask for help. Esther, the message said, you must go to the king and beg for our lives. You cannot stay silent. Maybe you were made queen for this very moment, to save us. Esther was scared. She knew that anyone who went to the king without being invited could be put to death, unless the king showed mercy by holding out his golden scepter. But she also knew that she couldn't just do nothing. She sent a message back to Mordecai. Tell the people to fast and pray for me for 3 days, the message said. I will do the same. After that, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. After 3 days of fasting and praying, Esther knew it was time to act. She took a deep breath, dressed in her royal robes, and walked into the king's hall. Her heart pounded in her chest, because she didn't know what would happen. The king hadn't called for her, so this was risky. When King Ahasuerus saw Esther standing there, he was surprised, but instead of getting angry, his face softened. He lifted his golden scepter, a sign that she was welcome. Esther let out a sigh of relief and slowly stepped forward. The king smiled and said, Queen Esther, what is it? What do you wish? I will give you anything you ask for, even up to half of my kingdom. But Esther didn't ask for help right away. She had a plan. She wanted to be careful, so she said, if it pleases the king, I would like to invite you and Haman to a banquet I am preparing today. The king was pleased with her request. Tell Haman to come quickly, he ordered. We will go to Queen Esther's banquet. Later that day, the king and Haman arrived at Esther's banquet. The food and wine were plentiful, and the atmosphere was calm. During the meal, the king asked Esther again, What is your request, Queen Esther? Whatever you want, I will give it to you. Esther looked at the king and said, If I have found favor in your eyes, come again tomorrow to another banquet I will prepare for you and Haman. Then, I will tell you what I want. The king agreed, and Haman left the banquet feeling very proud. He thought, the queen invited only me and the king to her banquet. I must be very important. But as Haman walked past the palace gates, he saw Mordecai, and once again, Mordecai refused to bow. Haman's happiness quickly turned to anger. When he got home, he complained to his wife and friends, telling them about how Mordecai wouldn't bow to him. Build a tall gallows, his wife suggested, and ask the king to hang Mordecai on it tomorrow morning. Then you can go to the queen's banquet in peace. Haman liked this idea. He ordered a tall gallows to be built that very night. Meanwhile, back in the palace, the king couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, but sleep wouldn't come. So, he called for one of his servants and asked them to read the royal records to him. As the servant read, he came to the part where Mordecai had saved the king's life by warning him about the 2 guards who had planned to kill him. The king sat up. Wait, he said, what reward was given to Mordecai for saving my life? The servant looked through the records and said, Nothing, Your Majesty. The king frowned. That cannot be. Someone who saved the king's life deserves a reward. Who is in the court right now? At that moment, Haman had just entered the court, planning to ask the king for permission to hang Mordecai. The servants told the king that Haman was there, so the king called him in. Haman, the king said, what should be done for a man whom the king wishes to honor? Haman, thinking the king was talking about him, felt very proud. He imagined himself being honored in front of everyone, so he said, for the man the king wants to honor, let a royal robe be brought that the king has worn, and a horse that the king has ridden, with a royal crest on its head. Then, let the man be led through the city streets on the king's horse, with someone shouting, this is what is done for the man the king wishes to honor. The king smiled. Excellent. Go and do all of this for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the palace gate. Don't leave out a single thing. Haman's face dropped. Mordecai. The man he hated so much. But he couldn't disobey the king, so he had to do exactly as he had said. Haman dressed Mordecai in the royal robes, put him on the king's horse, and led him through the streets, shouting, this is what is done for the man the king wishes to honor. When it was over, Haman hurried home, ashamed and angry. But before he could do anything, the king's servants arrived to bring him to Queen Esther's second banquet. At the banquet, the king once again asked Esther, what is your request, Queen Esther? Whatever you want, it will be yours. This time, Esther knew it was time to tell the king everything. She took a deep breath and said, Your Majesty, if I have found favor in your eyes, please spare my life and the lives of my people. We are in great danger. There is a plan to destroy us, to wipe us out. The king was shocked. Who would dare do such a thing, he asked. Esther pointed to Haman and said, The enemy is this wicked man, Haman. The king's face turned red with fury. He stood up, enraged. Haman's heart pounded with fear, and he fell at Esther's feet, begging for his life. But the king stormed out into the garden, trying to control his anger. When he returned, he saw Haman lying near Esther, pleading with her. The king's anger grew even stronger. Will he even attack the queen while I am in the house? He shouted. At the king's command, Haman was taken away, and hanged on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. After Haman's death, the king gave all of Haman's property to Queen Esther. Mordecai came before the king, and Esther revealed that Mordecai was her cousin. The king took off his royal ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, putting him in charge of all Haman's wealth and power. But there was still a problem. The law that Haman had made to destroy the Jewish people was still in place. So, Esther went to the king again, falling at his feet and weeping. Please, Your Majesty, change the law Haman made. My people are still in danger. The king raised his golden scepter to show he was willing to listen. He told Esther and Mordecai to write a new law, giving the Jewish people the right to defend themselves. The law was written and sent to every part of the kingdom. When the day came for Haman's plan to be carried out, the Jewish people stood up for themselves and were saved.